Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I am Kevin Talek Marston, and it is my pleasure as president of the Society for American Soccer History, also known as SASH, to welcome you to our August 2026 First Friday session. It's the last one before our summer break. Founded in 1993, SASH works to promote, facilitate, and disseminate research into the rich history of soccer in the United States. You can find us best in two places, on the web at ussoccerhistory.org and on social media on our various accounts on Facebook, LinkedIn, X, and Blue Sky. You can please follow First Friday sessions with the hashtag so that we can repost. And a reminder that the SASH website has a wonderful collection of digitized resources ranging from across the planet featuring clips of American soccer heritage. We certainly encourage you to support our ongoing crowdfunding campaign to digitize more of this material and showcase and preserve U.S. soccer history. All of our sessions are available on YouTube and as podcast, and we thank our wonderful, amazing volunteer membership for managing all of this. Are you working on something that you might like to present in the future? If you would, please do write to the SASH board. All ideas are welcome from current or future members to be. If writing is more your thing rather than speaking, then please do submit written contributions for the SASH website, as we're always looking out for new research into the area. If you're not yet a member, you can join SASH through our website. Please click on the Join SASH button, and you'll be eligible to receive our newsletter. We welcome new members with open arms and friendly feet. Our speaker today is Dr. Joe Machnik. He may be our most famous SASH member and will be familiar to all viewers of the Fox World Cup coverage from this summer. After growing up in Brooklyn, he earned his PhD from the University of Utah. Dr. Joe is also a National Soccer Hall of Famer. He will discuss his long and storied career as a player, also as an All-American goalkeeper. He was a coach as well, organizing the country's first goalkeeper camp, a referee and administrator, and most recently, a broadcaster. He's held multiple roles with Major League Soccer since 1996, and he has the distinct privilege, I think, of being one of the few people this year to have watched all 104 World Cup games and commenting on almost just one half of them. So he will be speaking about his new book, From the Sandlots to the World Cup, and taking us through his wonderful, fascinating life journey across and through the game. So, Dr. Joe, we're very pleased to have you and give you the floor. And to use a phrase that all World Cup reviewers will recognize, let's bring in Dr. Joe.
Well, thank you so much. It's indeed a privilege and an honor for me to be part of this session for the Society of American Soccer History. My history goes back to the middle 1950s, and that's why when I put together a book, I called it From the Sandlots to the World Cup, because back in the 50s, we played truly on sandlots. And I'm going to show a few pictures from inside the book. There's 115 pictures actually and over 900 words. And it describes my personal journey through many aspects of the development of soccer in America, just being at the right place at the right time, or whatever it is. It just was so fortunate for me to be, and that's why I use the word inside 7 decades of American soccer, because I was there for the most part when so many different things took place. So if you would go to that first slide, please, I think it will help us organize. Can you put it so it appears in full? There you go. There you go. So this is a picture of the Ukrainian junior team from the New York Ukrainian Sport Club. And I'm the goalkeeper, the guy in the white shirt. I became part of the Ukrainian community. I'm not Ukrainian, I'm Polish American heritage. When I sat down in an English class at Brooklyn Technical High School, and the gentleman standing second from left, his name is Andrew Sheparovich, we started talking about soccer and about hockey. I knew more about hockey, to be sure, although I saw my first soccer games in McCarran Park in Brooklyn. And he brought me to the Ukrainian club. And That's how I started there. I picked this photo because it clearly shows the Sandlots, and it's actually in the far goal at Eintracht Oval, which was a storied facility in New York City. There were many of these facilities that were privately owned by sport clubs, such as Metropolitan Oval, which still exists today. But there was Sport Friend Oval in Passaic, Zariga Oval in the Bronx, New Farmers Oval, which was in Maspeth, which had actually two fields there, and then a baseball field in the summer months. So yeah, I mean, so this was before a Maguire Cup game that we played against Eintracht, at their facility, Eintracht Oval. And when I show this photo, I always make a joke about our two KGB coaches that were standing on each side of the team. But it was a wonderful experience, and that's how I got started in the Ukrainian Sport Club. The next photo. Now, this is another picture of Eintracht Oval, and purely you can see the Sandlot even better. This is a game of the Ukrainians in the dark shirted team. The white shirted player is John Nussbaumer. He was a teammate of mine at Brooklyn Tech, and actually he gave me this picture. That's Peter Schaefer's trying to cross the ball, and Ted Purdon, a very famous English player who played at Sunderland, one of the Canadians that we brought down on a weekly basis from Toronto to help us play. Look at the crowd. I mean, it's hard to find a woman in the crowd. Sundays at Eintracht Oval and the rest of those facilities, they didn't. I wouldn't call them fan friendly, but they were dust bowls and difficult to play on, especially back in the day if you were a goalkeeper. So that's a really good picture of Eintracht Oval back in the day. Next, please. This is my team at Long Island University. Again, I'm the goalkeeper in the middle. Coming out of Brooklyn Tech, I look at the ball, by the way, and the goalkeeper has no gloves, and the ball has no color, and it's bigger than the ball we used to play with, and the field had a little bit of grass, but also was a sandlot. The coach was Gary Rosendahl. He was one of my mentors. He recruited me and Ray Klavecka. That name might mean something to some of you. He later became the coach of the Cosmos, and then coach of the Buffalo Stallions in the indoor league. We were teammates at LIU. Ray scored the goals. I made some saves. We both made All-American, and we got LIU into the 1963 NCAA tournament, which was the first tournament for the soccer team at LIU. Next, please. That's the full team of the New York Ukrainians, and that picture is taken at Ukrainian Field in College Point. They built a field on a sandlot, and I'm standing in the warm-up suit next to our sponsor, actually, who helped finance the team. Gordon Bradley is not in this picture. He was often our coach. For whatever reason, I don't know why he was not in this picture. This is the team that won the U.S. Open Cup, 1965-66. You see Ted Purdon standing left, first one in uniform. The balding gentleman in the center standing is John Young. He later played with the early Cosmos, good friend of Gordon Bradley. Peter Smethurst was our goal scorer standing next to me. Bottom left, kneeling, was a player, Mario Delamello Paz. He came over to the United States to play in Bill Cox's International Soccer League for Belenenses. He met a Ukrainian woman while he was here, and then he decided to stay here, and he married that lady and finished his playing career for the New York Ukrainians. Mario DeMello Paz, P-A-Z. Next picture. This is a picture of the very first U.S. sponsored, at that time, USSF sponsored coaching school. And as part of it's 1970 at the Moses Brown School. The part of the coaching school course was that you had to play a game, and they brought in a team of Brown University players and other college players to play in this game. There were 17 participants in that first coaching school. You could see the circle around the face of Detmar Kramer, who was brought from Germany as a FIFA coach. I'm kneeling with the white sleeves. To the left, two persons down, is Gene Chisowitz, who attended. Standing all the way on the right, Bob McNulty. Two inside from him is Lenny Lusenko, and there's Manny Shelshai, a name that must be obviously familiar to everyone. And then to Detmar Kramer's immediate right, our left, as we look at it, Harry Saunders, who was represented Southern New York State Soccer Association, and George Donnelly. They were the administrators of the camp. So that was the very beginning of coaching schools in America. That course went for 3 weeks, 1 week at a time. You registered for 1 week. I did, Detmar Kramer asked me to do the goalkeeping lessons. He liked what I did, and he brought me back for week 2 and week 3, and that was kind of like the beginning of my goalkeeping teaching career. I did a lot of the goalkeeping instruction at the early coaching schools, and actually led to my forming #1 goalkeepers camp in 1977. Next photo, please. Oh, I did have a referee career, as you mentioned. Growing up in New York, I liked, hockey. Back when the NHL had a 6-team league, and you could get into the old Madison Square Garden with a high school ID for 40 cents, and which I think I went to almost every game on a Sunday night. The games weren't televised back then, so they were 2 hours and 5 minutes usually. And I was home back in Greenpoint, Brooklyn by 9:30. So it was okay for my parents to, let me go even on a Sunday night before school. This is a picture of an early major indoor soccer league game. It's probably at Nassau Coliseum. I got named referee in chief of the original MISL. I refereed the first game. I know Michael Lewis was at that game because he wrote about it when Pete Rose kicked out the first ball. I refereed, I don't know, several hundred of those games in 5 years, and including 2 all-star games and an all-star game in Madison Square Garden, which obviously was a big thrill for me to referee in the Garden, where I had watched so many hockey games. I got that assignment because I knew a little bit about hockey. Walter Chisowitz, who became director of coaching for U.S. Soccer, was also a consultant for the league. And he hired me because he knew that the indoor game was going to be played inside the hockey boards, and it was going to be fast, and we were going to have substitutions on a fly. We were going to have time penalties and a whole lot of situations which, happened in hockey but didn't happen in outdoor soccer. So he asked if I would interview for that job, and I did. And Walter Chisowitz, I mentioned Gary Rosenthal, my coach at LIU, as one of my mentors. He's the one who gave me the head coaching job at LIU when he became dean of students there. Walter Chisowitz was my other mentor. And then finally, the commissioner of this indoor league, Earl Foreman, who taught me so much about the management of pro leagues and pro sports, because he was part owner of the Washington Redskins, and he owned the Virginia Squires in the ABA, and where Dr. J. Julius Erving played. and I actually got to meet Dr. Dr. J. So it was a kind of a cool Dr. Joe meets Dr. J moment. So it was kind of like fun for me. Yeah, thank you. Next one, please. Ah, so one of the things Walter appointed me eventually for was to help with the goalkeepers of the national team. This is a picture of St. Louis Soccer Park. This is taken before the USA is going to play Jamaica. This is a World Cup qualifying game. The coach is Lothar Hacienda. That's him standing immediately on the far right. I'm standing inside of him. We had tied the first game in Jamaica 0-0 and had to win this game in order to go into the next round of 1990 qualifying. We won the game 5-2. It was 1-1 late in the game, and Hugo Perez drew a penalty, scored the penalty, and then we ran away with the game 5-2. But back then at that soccer park, we would get anywhere from 3,500 to 5,000 people to see the national team play World Cup qualifiers. We played many of our games there and for qualifying in 1990 World Cup. Next photo, please. This is a photo of the five-a-side World Cup team. I was the assistant coach. I'm standing on the far right. You can see the gentleman in the brown jacket middle is Jal Havelange, then president of FIFA. We have medals around our necks. We won the bronze medal at the first five-a-side indoor tournament. There's Chuck Blazer standing on the left. He was a head of delegation. Inside of him is John Kowalski. Many of these players were from the '88 Olympic team. And then many of these players, you can see Tab Ramos, Peter Vermes, Eric Eichmann, Dave Vanoli, Mike Windishman, Bruce Murray. Many of these players then went on to represent us in the 1990 World Cup. Next one, please. At the end of my 15-year career at Major League Soccer, Don Garber presented me with this plaque at the United Soccer Coaches Convention. I had a wonderful time working MLS. I was hired basically in year two, at the beginning of year two, and I worked through year 16, managing the referee program. I was hired by Sunil Gulati because I had put together a referee program for the indoor league, and it was the long-term goal for U.S. Soccer and the Canadian Soccer Association to eventually professionalize our referees, and that's what we have today with the organization called Pro. One more, I think. After MLS, well, during MLS, one of my duties and responsibilities was to appear annually at the so-called broadcasters meeting. The meeting was held to, kind of speak about how broadcasts should be done. Our head of broadcasting was Michael Cohen, and he brought me into these meetings to explain the laws of the game and also the nuances of the disciplinary committee, which I also was in charge of. That job wasn't that much fun, by the way. So as a result of my doing those broadcast meetings, which I tried to make fun, I brought props, I brought referees, I brought video, and tried to make them as entertaining as possible. When Michael became a consultant for Fox, when they started their sports programming, FS1 and FS2, and they knew they were going to have the World Cups, Michael asked me to interview to become a rules analyst for Fox. Fox pioneered the whole rules analyst scene when they hired Mike Pereira the NFL vice president of officiating to be, to do rules analyst of NFL games. And so I became, I think, the first American soccer rules analyst. And I tried at their direction not to be a pundit to criticize, referee decisions, but to take the opportunity to explain them from a referee's point of view. And this photo was taken from little studio that I had in Vancouver for the first Women's World Cup 2015. So I did do two Women's World Cups, one out of Vancouver, one out of my home studio, which Fox set up when the World Cup was in Australia, New Zealand. And then I did three men's World Cups. The first one being Russia, where I was stationed in Moscow, then Qatar, where I was in Qatar and I shared responsibility with Mark Clattenburg, and then most recently for our World Cup, which we hosted this past summer, where I was stationed for 6 weeks in the LA studios. And that kind of, I arranged these photos kind of to show the different aspects of my career, but also then to bring us to the ability to talk about the World Cup if that's where we want to take the rest of this podcast. So I'm now open to Q&A.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Joe. I'm going to pull the pictures off just so that we can see everybody and who's asking questions. We'll go ahead and open the floor. Would anybody like to take a dab at the first question? Please raise your hand.
I would, Kevin.
Please, Michael.
Michael Lewis from New York. Great to see you again, Dr. Joe. This isn't about the World Cup. This is about Metropolitan Oval and all the other fields that you played on. I visited the Met Oval back in the day when it was a Dust Bowl. I've heard stories about players playing in the rain, different conditions. As a goalkeeper, you're flipping and flopping probably all over the place. I'd like to know, I know you had mentioned it before, but how did you survive and how much mud did you have to scrape off of you after some of these games?
Michael, the mud wasn't the problem. I loved playing in the mud. It was when there was no mud, and you went for a diving save and you had to pull the cinders and the stones and everything from the sides of your thighs. You know what a raspberry is, right? What we used to call a raspberry. Well, and it sticks to your pajamas and it lasts for like a week, and it takes so long to heal. That was the issue. Is when you came out, I was very aggressive as a goalkeeper. I tried to, parallel myself, before the guy got a shot off. If it was close enough, and so it was often your thighs, the outside of your thighs, and the outside of your arms were just scraped like crazy. So you just, from one game to the next, I guess you just had to make sure that you didn't get infection. I mean, I had a few concussions in my day, but that didn't come from the field. Yeah, I mean, some of the fields were just sandlots. That's what they were.
Right. Who's up for our next question? Thank you, Michael, for that question.
I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead, Chuck, and I think Justin, you waved your hand next, so Chuck first.
Hi, Dr. Joe. Thank you very, very much, and thank you for
My
your
pleasure,
work this
Chuck.
summer. Really, really enjoyed seeing you in the chat as well. It was awfully nice to have some insight there. That was great.
Thank you.
A few questions actually. Firstly, how have you seen goalkeeping training change since you began instructing? And how have you seen refereeing change? And then the third question is, I'll wait. let you answer those first.
Well, let's start with goalkeeping. So goalkeeping has changed dramatically since the time that I played. Sometimes the change comes from the fact that the laws of the game have changed. When I played, if a teammate threw the ball in, I could handle the ball. If a teammate passed the ball back to me, I could pick it up. I could handle the ball. Okay, when those two rule changes were made where you could no longer handle a throw in or a back pass, then goalkeepers had to be able to play with their feet. And for the most part, we were shot stoppers. We couldn't play with our feet. If we were lucky enough to have one strong foot, then certainly a ball on the other weak foot was problematic. So over the time, it became more and more important for a goalkeeper to have field playing experience. So we always, the youngsters, you play half a game in a goal and half a game, on the field, so you could develop some sense of, not only reading the game, but also field playing experience. It got taken to where we are today, where goalkeepers are now being called goal players. Okay, so that's a whole thing where the goalkeeper is expected to be part of the system of play. So 4-4-2 only equals 10, but now systems of play with the goalkeeper involved should equal 11. The problem is the training of a person to be a goal player has shortened the amount of time they train to be a goalkeeper. So what I'm seeing across the country and even in the World Cup to some extent, not the same shot stopping ability, and because of so much time and practices work on the goal playing part. Now, and it's specifically, I think, with the American keepers that we had. I mean, look at the keepers that we had starting in '90: Dave Vanoli, Casey Keller, Brad Friedel, Tim Howard. Just a fabulous American goalkeepers. Tony Meola, obviously. So, but now one of our weakest points on the field has been our goalkeeping. I think you're shaking your head. You agree with me, and I wonder if the concentration in training on being a goal player has contributed to the fact that they have not been able to save balls which you would think are savable. There's one other point. Goalkeepers have become huge in terms of their size. I mean, so you go like Manuel Neuer. So he develops a style that is basically stand-up, where he comes out and he puts one arm here, one on there, spreads a leg, and he expects the player to hit them with the ball. Now that works really good if you're 6'6", but if you're 5'8", right? That style is problematic. Okay, so and I think we're watching Neuer and these other goalkeepers play in, I think they call it the X style or the spider style or whatever. It doesn't work for a youth goalkeeper, okay? Because it just doesn't work. They're not going to get hit with the shot because they're not presenting a big enough angle. So it's, I have a little bit of issue with the current training, especially of young goalkeepers. Your second question was about refereeing. Now, refereeing has changed just as much as goalkeeping because of the presence of VAR. Okay, but it starts well before VAR. It starts with the beginning of the training of officials specifically for the role of assistant referee. Okay, used to be they were linesmen. Okay, but they were also referees back, so sometimes you were a referee, another day you were a linesman. Now, the linesmen train specifically to be assistant referees. I mean, the training they do on offside, they're actually using video at high speed to make it go faster, so they can so that the game actually slows down for them. So their whole role has changed. And at the highest level, you're now referee and assistant referees are part of a team. So that you have the referee works with the same assistants all the time at the highest level. And that teamwork really is beneficial because they're all on the same page. The assistant referees know what the referee wants, et cetera, et cetera. Now add VAR. So VAR is also supposed to be part of the referee team. So often we'll see, and in fact, they dress the VAR room. They're in referee uniforms in the VAR room. So they're part of the team, usually from the same country. Certainly they speak the same language, I'm talking the highest level. All right. So what was VAR meant to be? It was meant to eliminate clear and obvious errors, to provide the referee with an angle different from the angle that he has on the field. The referee has only one angle on the field, has to make a decision. VAR can present the referee with any one of 16 angles. Often the best angle is from behind the goal, right? We can see stuff that otherwise can't be seen. Now, so that if I was a referee today, I would be so confident that if I made a clear and obvious error, it would be corrected, or I would be given the opportunity to see it from a different angle and maybe correct that decision. I would have the ability to keep my decision or change my decision, because at the end of the day, it's the referee who makes the final decision, not the VAR. Okay, so now, first time VAR was used at the World Cup was in Russia. And we had these, incidences where clear and obvious errors like handling, missed handballs were being fixed. Now it has been taken so far that we have what's called advanced semi-automatic offside technology with a chip in the ball, with additional 16 or 20 cameras around the stadium, which measures every part of every player's body that can score a goal. The chip in the ball records when there's a contact. So, and we are now seeing goals disallowed by the most minute offside, you cannot say that was a clear and obvious error, except that positional offside, and I have to say, positional offside is black and white, right? It's black and white. You are in a, so then you can say, well, that's clear and obvious. The player's either offside or unoffside. But did we really want to take it that far? Did we want to eliminate Croatia from having a game go into an extra 30 minutes because the chip in the ball registered that it touched a player's hair, that put another player in an offside position and disallow a tying goal? That same chip in the ball that registered that it touched the player's hair didn't register when it allegedly hit a wire of an overhead camera, which changed the ball, which led to a goal. So it's taken it so far that sometimes you wonder that it leads to conspiracy theory, that so you're not only questioning whether the referee is making a decision here or there, but what is the VAR doing? I mean, Argentina advanced, I hope I'm not talking too much, Argentina advanced so much on VAR decisions, like the denial of an Egyptian goal. I was working that game, right? It looked like a beautiful goal, right? Now the goal is held up. Why? Because a foul in the attacking phase of play happened 75 yards away 5 seconds before. So is that where we want to go? So I came up with a thing. I said it on a different podcast, on actually a Fox thing. I said 75% of the time, VAR is taking away something beautiful, something fun, something that we want in soccer. And the other 25% of the time, it's giving us something that's ugly, unfortunate, and we don't want. So I mean, and now one more point on it. IFAB, International Football Association Board, comes out last week and said there are two situations where VAR overextended itself and didn't apply the law correctly. Okay, the first, in our game against Paraguay, USA Paraguay, Tim Ream is cautioned for a tackle. Okay, VAR calls the referee over. Tim Ream made no contact with the player, and now they take the yellow card from Tim Ream and they give it to the attacking player from Paraguay for simulation. Okay, and they do it under the guise of mistaken identity. They said the mistaken identity rule, the card was given to the wrong player. Then it doesn't get corrected during the World Cup. So it happens again in a more important game. And I'm sorry if I didn't get the whole games right, but there's a play where the defender is cautioned for a tackle. VAR brings over the referee and says, no, it's simulation. Take the card away from this player, give it to the other player, and it happens to be the player's second yellow, and the player is sent off from the game, and that turns the game. So, I mean, it's something's got to be done, because I don't think that's what we want. It's interesting. The law book of soccer says referees need to be making decisions based on what soccer wants or what soccer needs, right? But you think VAR is like sometimes making decisions for, or influencing or referees to make decisions where things that soccer doesn't want or need. Did I answer your questions?
Absolutely.
You had a third.
And I'll save the third if I have time at the end.
Okay.
Thank you, Chuck. Justin, I think you were next.
Well, Dr. Joe, thank you so much for everything. The question that I had actually was teed up perfectly by Chuck and by your responses. My question was essentially that you've been in the game and around the game for so long that you've seen so much evolution, so much change. But my question was that change isn't always a good thing. What are some things that you like about how the game has evolved, and maybe some things that you don't? You've addressed a couple of things already about the ways that maybe the game has evolved in less than pleasing ways. But if there's something that you appreciate about how the game has evolved, looking back about where the game was when you were playing or when you began, anything that kind of strikes you as kind of either impressive or man, I really wish that we could go back to that.
That's a good question. Thank you. First of all, when I started playing, there was no community youth soccer. All the youth soccer was based out of ethnic clubs. I played in New York City, but the cities were where soccer was, played mostly. Chicago had a big ethnic community, St. Louis, another community, Los Angeles, San Francisco, whatever. So over time, be it the start of where soccer really started to gain a little bit of foothold with the 1990 World Cup, because USA had a team in it, to the 94 World Cup where we hosted, to the World Cups where the women did so well that they encouraged young girls and young women to start to play soccer. Title IX came into college soccer, and it became a reason for colleges to start women's soccer programs. There are more women's soccer teams in college than there are men's soccer teams in college. So slowly but surely, soccer became part of American pop culture, which certainly wasn't. When I played, it was, very few people. There were no games on television to speak of. It was a game considered like only for foreigners. And, slowly but surely all of that changed. I mean, we had pro leagues that failed. And now we have the success of Major League Soccer with its soccer-specific stadiums and 30 teams and probably more to be announced. The success of the Women's Pro League, college soccer booming, youth soccer booming all over. Facilities, talk about facilities, no more Sandlots, Now you have a facility with 14, 16, 18 fields. They're all manicured. I mean, kids play on grass. They would never play on this. They would never play on the sandlots we played on. Their parents wouldn't let them. So I moved to South Carolina almost 30 years ago, and there was very little soccer, even though we had the Charleston Battery, and they had one of the first soccer specific stadiums of, a nice little 5,000 seat stadium. I was talking about soccer to a neighbor, and he described the game to me as glorified keep away. Okay, because there was no because he had no understanding of the game, because he didn't grow up with the game. But now our fan base has grown up with the game. So they understand the intricacies of midfield play. They understand the role of the different players. They understand the difficulty of officiating. And we have embraced the game now. And I think this World Cup just put the icing on the cake. And so if soccer hadn't been fully part of American pop culture, it certainly is now. And I think everybody's looking for the next World Cup.
Great.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Joe. I think, David, you're up next.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Great to see you as always. This is such an amazing achievement.
Thank you.
It really is just incredible. Anyone that's known you throughout the years, whether we know you in person or see you on TV, I don't think anybody has. 99% of the people that know you so well don't know 99% of the things that you've done in American soccer. And
Thank you.
It's so valuable, not just for soccer historians, but for generations moving forward in terms of American sport history or the growth of world football. I think this is a really essential text that anybody that's on the call that doesn't have it yet, get it now. It's really incredible. I said I have a question or 1,000, so I'm going to try to restrict and restrain myself here. I'd like to hear you talk a bit about the indoor game. Again, you talked a little bit earlier about, being a kid going to the Rangers games at the Garden. I don't know if you remember Kilpatrick's indoor games that they had there when they did have a little bit of indoor soccer there. When my relative ran the Garden before the current Garden there. If you remember the soccer tournaments that were there, I don't know if you remember that at all.
No,
but
I don't.
I'd love to hear you talk about so much of this is in the book, but how that hockey experience related to the way you appreciated the sport and the timing and everything of that. I think a lot of soccer historians look back at indoor soccer, and those of us that were able to go to the NASL indoor and the MISL games know how electric it was, how fascinating it was. And you had people like you, Gino DiPolito, whatever. But now it seems like indoor soccer back in the era is kind of a little bit of a scapegoat, as if it was something that interfered with the development of the game. I wonder if you want to talk about that and perhaps the future of the game, whether it's boards or, again, you chronicle in here the great bronze medal that the futsal team had achieved. And if you could talk about that. And then a very specific thing I want to talk about on page 191, you talk a little bit about Paul Harris and his Soccer for Americans brand. Again, that's just to point to another great book, right? Say this one that he did with Sam Foulds. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about that project, your early involvement in publication. And well, again, like I said, I could ask 998 other questions, so I'll just cut it right there.
Well, I'll start with the last part first, and that being Paul Harris. So in '77, I started this goalkeeper camp, and we had at the Taft School in Connecticut, that first year we had 39 goalkeepers from 13 states, and we must have done a pretty good job. I mean, the name Danny Gaspar, he was one of my staff coaches, Mickey Cohn, Shep Messing, Roy Messing. So we did a pretty good job, to the point where it became the following year 200 goalkeepers from 39 states, which meant that by year 3 we had to expand. So by year 3, I think we were in Chicago, Texas, and maybe California. And when we got to the California site, which was Chapman College in Orange County, during one of the field sessions, Paul Harris comes up, and without introduction, I don't think, comes up to me and said, "Would you mind if I take some pictures of, what you're doing?" And then that led to a conversation. Would you like some of these pictures? We could put together a book, right? And I had no, idea about writing a book, but basically what Paul Harris put together was a picture book of the different things we were doing at camp, with some NASL pictures and some MISL pictures, and we called it "So You Want to Be a Goalkeeper," and it became a really fun book for kids at camp, to inspire them to do that. So that's how I met Paul Harris, and that was his work, and it was fun, to be in partnership with him. Indoor, there, NASL, the North American Soccer League, did play some indoor soccer. They did so because they needed to keep their players busy in the winter, those players that stayed in America. And they saw it. There was I don't remember the year offhand, but back in the time when it was USA against Russia was a big deal, with the ice hockey championship and all of that. So a promoter brought over the Russian soccer team, Red Army, I think it was, to play against the NASL champion Philadelphia Adams in the Spectrum in an indoor soccer game. I think there were 10,000 people at the game. And one of the spectators was a man by the name of Ed Tepper, who owned the indoor lacrosse team. And he said, "Why am I trying to sell indoor lacrosse professional? This indoor soccer has a chance, to make it." His good friend was Earl Foreman, who I mentioned earlier. And together they started in 77 to put together MISL, which kicked off its first game in Christmas week 78. But before that, the NASL was playing some indoor, but they didn't have the goals embedded into the boards. The goals, because they were exhibition games. The arenas didn't want to saw open the boards, and because it was a one in, one out situation. So one of the things when I think the goals were like 4 feet high and 18 feet wide. I don't know the exact dimensions, but they weren't soccer goals. They didn't require the goalkeeper to play the same way. It changed the game, how it was being played. So part of what I did immediately was say, we're going to make this soccer. Let's put the goal in the boards. So we had to convince the arenas, which they were now able to be convinced because they were going to have 14 games, at home. So they cut the goal into the boards. We made it 6'6" high, 12 feet wide, and it kind of was replicated the size of the goal that should be if the field was bigger. I mean, it was like a proportion. It was proportionate to the surface. Now, you mentioned the indoor games played at the Garden before my time. I think they were played on dirt. I think they played after the horse show or after the rodeo. They kept the dirt down and they played. That wasn't going to work for obvious reasons. So we played on artificial surface that was either put over the ice directly or over boards over the ice at the various stadiums where we played. And for a period of time, especially when the NASL folded, it was a place where players could maintain their professional career, still make a salary, still be a pro player. And we had a rule that I think on the roster, all but 3 players had to be either American or green card holders. Okay, as opposed to the NASL, which had a rule that said, you only had to have 3 players that were Americans. So in the NASL, those 3 players were typically the goalkeeper and a back defender like we're in a Roth, or rather than a creative midfielder or striker. So, but in any event, the indoor league gave opportunities for American players to play in a professional environment and have a salary. And if it wasn't for that, I don't know that 1990 would have even been successful because like Kevin Crowe was playing indoor. A lot of these players were playing indoor, and they kept their professional attitude, their professional shape. Although the game, it was hard to go from indoor. I mean, if you read part of my book, when Walter Chizzle was national team coach, putting players, a team together, he had like indoor players, outdoor players, college players, and he was assembling them a day and a half before the game. So sometimes they were flying in day a game, changing on the way to the field. But yeah, indoor played a role. It was an exciting game. It was run and gun. And I will tell you what happened, in my opinion. So it was, like I say, run and gun. So sometimes there would be an indoor soccer related injury. Okay. And because of the speed of the game, maybe the player got boarded. Maybe it was the AstroTurf, whatever. So the owners got together and said, we need to slow down the game. We need to get the game under control. And so there would be less injuries. And they invented a 6-foul rule. All right, which meant that if when a team made their 6th foul, then a player would have to go into the penalty box for 2 minutes. That changed the game completely because games that used to be 10-7 now became 2-1, 3-2 because coaches refused to let their players play aggressively when they lost the ball in the attacking third. The system of play became, okay, play, lose the ball, retreat, form a box, play defense. And it changed the game, took the dynamics, took the flow, took everything out of the game, and it began to fall apart.
That's fascinating. I think if I can interject one quick thing, and I'll go to Chris Jones. Do you know what year that rule change was, Dr. Joe?
Well, I was still working. I mean, I was adamantly opposed. The commissioner had to do it because the owners insisted. And it was a situation where every year owners had to put up a letter of credit in order to play, and at any time, since they didn't own the building or anything like that, they'd say, okay, I'm not putting up the letter, I'm not playing. But so I was there from 78 through 5 years. I think it was the 5th year, and then I left. I coached then the Arrows for parts of 2 seasons, and then began to work for the American Indoor Soccer Association, where I then was commissioner there for a couple of years before leaving for the World Cup team.
Okay, thank you. Christopher Jones, I think next question.
Hi, Dr. Joe. Thanks for taking the time to do this today. I'm
My pleasure.
calling in from Salt Lake City, Utah, actually. And so I was delighted to hear that little bit of your bio included. And my question's actually about that. I know your time in Utah was short, but did you have any involvement in the game out west during your time as a PhD student?
Actually, thank you. That's a great question. And Utah is one of my favorite places. So myself and Lenny Lusenko, who was a soccer coach in the East, we went out first almost on a lark for the summer. We were PhD students at NYU and going at night. And making little headway, not being sure that our dissertation would be approved or outlined, whatever. So he said, let's do this on a lark. And the university had a club team at that time, and we were able to play some games for the club team. But later, either the second summer or during the time of my 9-month residency, I had three stints there. I played for a team called Incas, okay, in the Utah State League, and that was fun. That was really good fun. We had a decent team, and I don't know, I don't remember how I hooked up with them, but I did get half a season to play with them. You might not know this, but about a year and a half ago, the university brought me out again, and I was honored by being the Department of Recreation and whatever alumnus of the year. Because when I took the degree, it was for leisure studies. Now it's called Parks, Recreation, and Tourism. So, but yeah, no, Utah's always been a special place for me, and I enjoyed my time there. And I was happy to go back a year and a half ago. And I spoke to some classes and was part of their award ceremony. I met with the women's soccer team and had some good memories.
Fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I think Chuck had an interesting follow-up question. He popped to me in the chat that would probably be interesting to add to this. Chuck, do you want to go ahead and pick that up around preservation and personal collections?
Sure. So my last question was, have you created an inventory at all of your soccer collection? And have you thought about how it can stay in the public space?
Chuck, I have boxes of stuff. When I was writing my book, I took out those boxes and, piece by piece, try to put it in chronological order, make some sense of it. I actually have Commissioner Earl Foreman's original bulletins from when the league folded or when he was no longer commissioner. Somehow they found their way to me. So like I think I even write about one of them in the book, is how the league, we wanted to sign Shep Messing as our premier goalkeeper, but Shep required to get him from the Cosmos and required a substantial salary. So the commissioner put together a thing where each of the other 5 teams paid his salary. So Shep was working for the league while playing for the New York Arrows. Yeah, so yeah, I have a lot of stuff, and some of it is more than 50 years old, like the scrapbook that my wife made for me when I was playing college soccer. And yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm kind
Please
of
think
like
about it, because
yeah, what I have to tell you, one of my disappointments, I'm in the National Soccer Hall of Fame, but there's very little about indoor soccer there. Almost nothing. Nothing about the five-a-side World Cup. And I could, yeah. Okay.
Very good. Would anyone else like to ask another question to Dr. Joe? I see Alfonso, please.
Hi, everyone, and hi, Dr. Joe. Alfonso here from Indianapolis. I guess one question. We just had the World Cup here in 2026, and it's crazy to think that we're already thinking about 2038. But putting all the everything going on at FIFA aside, maybe, and let's if you had a crystal ball and looking at maybe the World Cup, if it comes back to North America in 2038, putting it through the angle that you have from a refereeing perspective, from the grassroots perspective, from an executive perspective at different leagues, how do you see soccer in the U.S.? What are maybe some top 3 things that you would think that would change from now till 2038? And just kind of curious from a crystal ball perspective, if you have any thoughts.
Well, to get to 38, we first have to go to 30 and 34.
Yeah.
So you would think, and I mean, I don't know that they're going to expand the tournament, but there's talks of expanding the tournament to even more teams. Qualifying, we didn't have to qualify for this World Cup because we were one of the hosts. If they expand the tournament, qualifying will become a lot more easy than it certainly was in 90. And even although in 94 we didn't have to qualify, you recognize that shortly thereafter there was a World Cup like Russia 2018 where we didn't qualify. So the qualifying process is really difficult in CONCACAF. But if we expand the team more, then it will become, it'll be a no-brainer. We'll make it. And especially as host, if we do host it in 38. But anyway, qualifying has been really difficult. Part of the barometer of where you are as a soccer nation is success at the World Cup. Our reasonable goal and objective for this past World Cup would have been to get out of the round of 16. We did not. And we could look into some of the reasons why that happened, and maybe somebody will ask me that question, and I'll give you my point of view. But we didn't make it, and there's no guarantee in any sense. I mean, I don't know what we're going to do differently. Yeah, okay, we'll have more. I mean, there was a time, Alfonso, where soccer in America was criticized because it was being played only by white rich kids. Okay, the people that could afford to play. Okay, if you look at our national team now, it's multinational, right? So that and we didn't qualify out of the group of didn't make it past the round of 16. Back in 1990, we had two players, Paul Caligiuri, Tab Ramos, Peter Vermes, with European experience. Now, basically, we can put out a team on the field with extensive European experience now. That didn't get us out of the round of 16 either. So what is going to happen? What are we going to change? I think we could have and should have gotten out of the round of 16. I think what happened with the Balogun red card situation totally changed our mojo, our psychological set, our readiness to play. That was not the same team that played against Belgium that I saw play, against the other previous opponents. Granted, you could say, well, Paraguay, okay, we beat Paraguay 4-1. They weren't bad. They eliminated Germany, but against us, their best player wasn't playing. They scored an own goal early, and they kind of packed it in and looked forward to the next game. They got out of the group. The other opponents, we should win against the other opponents. But now we come up against Belgium, and I think we had a real chance to win. If we would have put on the same team with the same momentum, with the same energy, with the same cohesiveness, with the same pride that we had in the other previous games, but we lost it. We lost it. We had to lose it in the locker room. We had to lose it in practice. Something happened. Now I put myself in the shoes of the coach, right? So Balogun gets a red card. We can argue, is it a valid red card? By letter of the law, it certainly was a challenge which endangered the safety of the opponent. If you look at the way that player's leg bent, he was fortunate to get up and play. Had he had a broken ankle, then no one would be arguing whether this is a red card or not. But that's not the point. Intent is not the point. The card was given. So now for 3 days, Pochettino has to practice with either Ricardo Pepi or Haji Wright in the center forward position. Bum, 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 bum. Okay, we're ready to play. These are not bad players. They're ready to play. And then one day before the game, Balogun is declared eligible. Now put yourself in the coach's shoes. Do we start him? Do we bring him on into the second half? Is there pressure to start him politically because of the way that the card was rescinded? So for me, all of that was a mess. And the team that came onto the field was not the same team. Had it been the same team, had Balogun getting sent off, we probably had a shot, at beating Belgium. But it is what it is. You're asking me what changes? I mean, there's talk about changes in the youth system, pay to play, and it's all beyond me. At my stage in my career, it's you identify the right players. We probably needed some more depth. It would have been better for me if the coach Pochettino hired one or two assistants from America that could have brought to him a better understanding of the culture of the players, the understanding of the players, bring it together, and for me, I just got my fingers crossed. I don't know that anything is going to change to make us better to get out of the round of 16 by next World Cup. Now, by 38, come on, give me a break. I have no idea. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Excellent. Anyone else have another question for Dr. Joe here? Either on the book, on the past, the history, or on the recent experience. I know you said at the beginning, Dr. Joe, you'd happily talk about what it was like to work as a referee commentator as well. That's quite a unique position. So if anyone like,
I would like to talk about that. So both Mark Clattenburg and I, shared pretty much the games this past World Cup. So we were in a room no bigger than the one I'm sitting in now, and there were two giant sets of monitors with 4 pictures on it. So on the bottom left-hand picture was the real game. On the bottom right was the real game, but it was attached to a toggle system where we could stop the picture, we could do our own replays, and we could therefore really see maybe the point of contact of the foul. Was it really offside? Look at so many different things. On the top left-hand picture was a camera on the 18-yard line. Okay, so, and that was a permanent camera that's there, but we were now seeing stuff that the viewer wasn't seeing because we could look at that. Top right was a camera on the opposite 18-yard line. So we had basically 3 images, but a 4th image we could play with. So the entire game you spend looking at this, looking at that, because you don't know when the producer is going to bring you in. You're attached with a headset to the producer, and there could be something depending on who the announcers are. Different announcers want more from the rules analyst. Some announcers want less. So you don't know on a given play whether you're going to have to speak. Now, if the referee goes to the monitor, that certainly provides opportunity and time to bring in the rules analyst. And the way that Fox has wanted it over the years is, okay, you're describing the process. Now tell us what the referee is going to decide before the referee announces it. Okay, so that's kind of you've really got to know the laws. You got to know the interpretations. You got to read referee body language. You got to know what happened in the other games previously. You got to know what FIFA is telling the referees, because FIFA is sometimes telling the referees things a little bit stretching the laws of the game different than what we're learning. For example, when a player was injured on the field and had to come off if he was treated, we were never told 13, 15 games into the tournament that if it was a head injury, he didn't have to come off. And the thought process being, well, if it was a head injury that he was being treated for, he certainly wasn't faking it or looking to delay the game. With concussions, it's something, really serious. But we were never told that. We had to figure that out on our own. So I'd like to say that when I use what I know about the laws of the game, body language and stuff like that, and educated guesswork, 85% of the time I've been right, and the other 15% of the time the referee has been wrong. Yeah, but I've been lucky so far. But it was tough at the beginning of the tournament because now for the first time we weren't told this, referees were going to explain their call without going to the monitor. And if you remember one of the first calls that I had to speak about, there was a penalty kick decision going to the goal to the right. I don't remember the teams anymore. The games are all a blur. It was clear foul, in my opinion, and the player got fouled in such a way that when he landed, he was like on a penalty spot. So at no time did I think that there was consideration, did the foul happen inside or outside the penalty area? Okay. And then, so I'm looking at the foul, right? And I'm saying, well, it's an attempt to play the ball. It's not pushing, it's not holding, it's not. So if it's an attempt to play the ball, it's only going to be a yellow penalty kick, yellow card, right? Not a red card for clear denial of obvious goal scoring chance. And then all of a sudden, the referee starts speaking he's on the field, he's in the players, and now he's for the first time speaking to the public address system and to the TV audience, saying the VAR has advised me, and this is black and white decision, so he doesn't have to go to the monitor. Black and white decision. The foul happened outside of the penalty area, therefore no penalty kick, red card. So on my first, it was one of the earliest games of my first input, right? It was like somebody wrote on social media, is Dr. Joe really watching the game? So I mean, that's the situation you're in as a rules analyst. Of course, when I do it at home, maybe I could show over here is home, what they call home cam, and I got the lights and the whole thing. Behind me is a giant screen where they put the backdrop, and I got a headset connected to the thing. When I do it at home, it's tougher because I only have one image, and it's the same image that the viewer is seeing. I do have a TV next to it, but the TV comes on 17 seconds later through satellite TV, so it's of no help whatsoever because by that time I'm already speaking. So yeah, it's not as easy as it seems.
Excellent.
That's fantastic. Anyone have one more question? We still have a little bit of time before our 90-minute window is up. Yep, Justin.
Well, Dr. Joe, thanks for explaining that because that really is helpful to better understand what that process looks like. My question is, you mentioned it briefly in one of your answers just a little while ago, kind of talking about your experience with the national team. And one thing that has kind of always irked me is when people talk about the 1990 World Cup team, the discussion usually involves the word embarrassment. And I feel like that's really a disservice to that team. And you mentioned in your book kind of being left in limbo after that World Cup, not sure whether the coaching staff would be retained. And I know that the coach Gensler had made a conscientious decision to formulate the roster so that the young players would get the maximum experience building up towards the 94 World Cup and things like that. So I just wanted to get some of your input on that experience, whether you felt that that team kind of got disrespected or lost in the shuffle in the history pages a bit, and whether
you think that the 94 team kind of met what you would have expected them to do, kind of given your experience in participation with that team in 90?
That's a great question, and it's really a relevant question because prior to this World Cup, there's been so many documentaries about the history of soccer in America, and very little said about the 1990 team. It was almost as if soccer began in 1994. And it really is disrespectful, I think. First of all, the 94 team didn't have to qualify. All right, so they were immediately in the World Cup. And qualification, as I mentioned in CONCACAF, very difficult. We went to Trinidad, Tobago on the last day of qualifying for the whole World Cup, not only for US. Last day, we were the winner. If we won that game, we would have been the last team to qualify for the World Cup. If Trinidad tied the game, they would have been the last team to qualify for the World Cup. So we went there. And, everybody, first the game was, it was on ESPN. It was Thanksgiving week or whatever, but it had, I don't know what the viewership was. No one really gave us a chance, okay, with those odds. Trinidad had already declared a national holiday the next day. They were for sure going to win the game. We trained for a week prior to the game. We brought in Bermuda to play against us on Wednesday because we thought that the way Bermuda plays would simulate a little bit on how Trinidad might play. We struggled in that game. We beat them 2-1, but struggled. So there was little hope that we were going to come away with a win. Paul Caligiuri did score that goal. Tony Meola got a shutout. One of his 4 straight shutouts in qualifying. 2 of those shutouts were in 0-0 games, so that if he had given up even one goal in any one of those 2 games, the Trinidad game would have been meaningless. It was they say Caligiuri's goal a miracle goal, because we qualified. By the way, when we landed in Miami, before we caught our flights, there was nobody to meet us. No press, no interviews, no news. Then everybody went on their own. It was where soccer was in America at the time. And then all of a sudden, now we're in the World Cup, and all of a sudden expectations change. And the press and other sources are expecting us to win or something. So, and we get a really tough group, right? 3 European teams, Czechoslovakia, who's playing strong, Italy, and Austria, by the way, who, if you look at their pre-qualifying games, they're a very good team at the time. And in our scouting, we said if we have any chance at all to get any points, we're going to get them against Czechoslovakia because their team prior to that was in disarray. The Iron Curtain was just, coming down. They had half of their team had left and was playing in Europe. The other half was still in Czechoslovakia. There was dissension in the group. I learned all of this later in a post-tournament meeting in Corviciano where all of the coaches were brought together. So we thought if we had a shot to get a point, it was going to be against Czechoslovakia. And we played an open game. And we got hammered, okay? And Eric Winalda got sent off, which we had to play with 10 men. There were 2 penalties called against us. Meola saved one of them. But we rebounded, right? We rebounded and played brilliantly against Italy in the Olympic Stadium, right? To the point where the Italian players came into our locker room after the game and were congratulating us. We lost the game 1-0. Could have tied it. Walter Zenga was their goalkeeper. He saved the ball with his backside. After Bruce Murray took a free kick, the rebound came to Peter Vermes. The ball was under Zenga and was rolling towards the goal line before it was cleared. And then we were basically eliminated after 2 games. for us to qualify, we needed not only to beat Austria, but all kinds of magic to happen with the other results. But the expectation was like we were going to get out of the group, and you know, maybe win the thing. So we got hammered. We got hammered. Gansler was criticized for the coaching. Yes, he brought to the World Cup the players that got us to the dance. There were emerging. We were learning about Thomas Dooley. We were learning about Ernie Stewart. We were learning, about players. But Gansler and Chisowitz made the decision. These are the kids that got us to the World Cup. These are the kids, the future of American soccer. This is where we're going to go. As a result, even the so-called embarrassment of the World Cup, your words, not mine, but certainly all over, influenced the election of U.S. soccer to where Werner Fricke lost the election, and FIFA managed to, the election was won by Alan Rothenberg, who did a fabulous job promoting 1994 and all of that. But there was soccer before 94, and the 90 team should be much more appreciated, much more recognized for what they did, especially Bob Gansler. Okay, and it's one of the things that really disturbs me a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, the idea that a team that hasn't been to the World Cup for 40 years should come in and immediately know what they're doing and how it's going and all the rest of that. To me, I always see that first game as kind of a wake-up call, but then, as you mentioned, playing the host country 1-0 to the point that they're congratulating you on the performance, playing another European team 2-1. I don't know any team that's going to do well when they're red carded in the first game. So to me, I always feel like the actual performance on the field is I think disrespected. You had one bad game, but a lot of countries go to the World Cup, particularly after not being there for so long, and have one bad game. And
you got to remember that we had no pro league, right? So we saw in this World Cup that just passed, so-called minnows of soccer, right? But one of them had 11 of their players playing in the Premiership, right? First time appearance in the World Cup as a country. So none of that was possible in 1990 for us. Yeah, and I tell you, when I got to speak at this meeting in Corviciano representing the U.S. of all of the coaches, because Gansler was still with the team, and I think they were in Poland at the time, and he couldn't do it, so I did it. And I used the word naivety. Probably you should have used the word lack of experience. But for example, we had a corner kick, okay, and the ball got knocked down, and it resulted in a counterattack by Austria, where we had 3 opportunities to take a foul for the team, so to speak, probably a yellow card. But we weren't sophisticated enough in our game at that time to know, that at the World Cup level, if you have to take a foul, you take a foul, right? And I said that in my speech, and my speech, my notes and everything got recorded and appeared in a magazine called Scholastic Coach, right? And there was a letter to the editor after that said Joe Machnik is one of the most dangerous guys in American soccer because he's teaching our players how to foul.
It's all your fault, Joe.
Hey, back to the book. And I guess we're getting near the end. I want to make an opportunity for the membership, to purchase it. You have my email address. If they email me, I'll give them instructions. I got a discounted rate and for the membership, and I will mail them a signed copy. Okay. If I'll give them the instructions how to use Venmo or send me a check. But basically, the paperback, which is in black and white, is available for $20, and the hardcover, which is in full color, and I actually don't have any right now, but I had to order some. 115 pictures, over 900 names, and I appreciate what you just said, David. It's really the history of soccer in America.
Thank you, Dr. Joe. That's really a wonderful, generous offer as well to the SASH membership. Thank you so much for offering that. So please, if anyone is interested and has not yet, because I see that many of you already have your copy, if you have not yet gotten your copy, please do contact Dr. Joe directly. And I think we will wrap it up there 2 minutes into extra time. So if you would all just join me in saying thank you with a round of applause, Dr. Joe, for a very interesting and informative, excellent session. Again, sessions like these really help us understand and further our knowledge into the research and in the history of the game and in the history of how the sport has evolved in the United States. So thank you very much to everyone for tuning in. We will be taking our annual summer break after this, and we will announce a full slate of speakers for the fall quite soon. So please do keep your eyes on the SASH website, which, as you know, is your home for preserving the heritage and chronicling the history of American soccer. Thank you so much to everyone, and have a good one.
Thank you. It's been great. I enjoyed it very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.